Hi, buddy. This is Tony Mitra, my first serious attempt at live streaming on YouTube. Never done it before, but now I'm doing it just to try out a few things. My rant, State of the Union rant, you can say what's going on and with the world and all that. So, uh, talking from Canadian point of view, here is what I have to say, and most of the aware people are already aware of it, and that is that. Canada is going down the tube along with many other countries. It's not sure whether we can handle the global situation by people who do not agree what's going on a global scale. Many of us are restricted to doing things within our own locality, within our own provinces, and going outwards to federally and all that. Uh, what is going on? Okay, the things were not all right, and the government in control of corporations were probably making things hard for general people have been noticed by some of us for a long time. How long? Well, that our agriculture, for instance, was being controlled for corporate profit and being turned into product of toxicity that makes people sick in order to eat, was known to some of us from at least 70s or 80s. Some people started suspecting it maybe in the 60s, but many of us knew by 90s. We definitely knew 30 years ago that GMO and all that was not for better food, but for making more profit for corporations on one side and making it more toxic from the other side. So this we knew. That there was something wrong with the big pharma, that many of the medications being prescribed by doctors were not the best solution, not the most economical solution, and sometimes not even good for you, but they were being pushed. And those doctors who did not agree to it, they regularly lost their license to practice business. The license itself was not in control of the government, but in control of a body set up by these medical professionals that decided who has the license or not. I'm talking about North America and Europe. It's not quite the same in the rest of the world. For instance, in India, you cannot, the medical lobby or group or association or what have you, cannot take the license away from a doctor who got it from government medical institutions. The private bodies do not have the right to take it out. They can demand a person should be delicensed to the government, and then they have to face court charges, and where both parties are allowed to give their all evidence. It has to stand up in a court of law as evidence and all that, and it becomes not only lengthy, it becomes quite difficult to prove that the doctor was involved in malpractice. The doctor is supposed to use his own decision making capacity and not just everything he learned in the college, and that's it. So there is room for deviation. The same medicine doesn't affect everybody similarly. Same disease does not affect everybody similarly. There is always variation. So therefore, it's very hard to actually de-license a doctor in, say, India compared to, say, in Europe or North America. So all these things are there, but nonetheless, we knew that something very wrong was going on with agriculture department, with medical system, and many people suspected even in the economic policies and so-called the fiat currency and the moving away from gold, which happened in our lifetime around 1970s or so, in the time of Nixon. Whether it was a good fiscal policy or not, we were living out of money created out of thin air by printing. All these things were, part of some sort of a nasty agenda, and people didn't know how to blame, but most of them looked towards USA, because all these corporations who were controlling things were primarily out of USA initially. Now they have gone global. And then in about 8-9 years ago came the well, there was this petrodollar, and there was this endless series of invasions by U.S. government on Middle Eastern countries, mainly for those countries who had oil and who were wanting to sell their oil outside of the petrodollar, outside of US dollars. And this petrodollar thing came upon us in the 1970s. So all these things were falling into place. The countries that did not want to sell in dollars, they were invaded, and they're basically forced on a regime change, and the leaders were often assassinated. And that was then. And still we didn't wake up. And then started the overthrow of elected government in Ukraine, and where the US and the NATO was very actively involved. And then they set up a puppet regime of an unelected dictator who was a lapdog of the EU and the NATO. That was a kind of a serious warning call. And then things, the civil war that erupted in Ukraine. Ukraine is a divided country with half of the population being Ukrainian, other half being, or other big part being Russian, and then there are other small groups of other people also. The Russian section, apart from controlling a large part of the population, they also were concentrated on the eastern part, where all the heavy industries and job creation was there. They revolted against this coup, and then they wanted to separate themselves. They declared that they had an internal referendum and declared themselves independent. They opted to join with Russia. All that story was there. And then in this year, March, Russian forces finally invaded Ukraine to demilitarize and denazify it. The Nazification is another big issue. I will not go into all the detail. But that was another big issue. So that thing escalated to the extent today that almost the entire Western world, I'm saying Western world, not the whole government, whole planet, went against Russia. They started an economic war of a scale that is not seen recent times. There were military war in Second World War and First World War, but total war, that means boycotting Russia from the entire financial system of the world that was controlled by the West, by the way, and then sanctioning them on every piece of trade, and not allowing their planes to fly over the Western nation, and throwing them out of international organizations, even not allowing them to take part in Olympics, which are not, they're independent bodies, and Olympic soccer and all that. I mean, unbelievable amount of harassment thrown at there, aimed at dismembering and crippling the Russian economy so that it implodes, and there is a regime change from within, and Russia is eventually broken into pieces. And that is not going on as per the plan. And now there's another major, looks like realignment taking place, where the unipolar world is to be replaced by a multipolar world, either all across the planet or at least on half the planet, where one half of the planet, called the West, loosely speaking, will believe in the unipolar world and the systems set up by it over the centuries. And then there will be another half of the world, which is multipolar system, which will boycott all these systems set by one set of countries, and establish parallel systems for the other set of countries. So this unbelievable things are going on, and in the process, some of us Canadians have been, lamenting on the loss of our freedom and every part of our free speech, and so on. Everything is being taken away on excuse of either COVID, or on mask, or on vaccine, or on this or that. Your right to protest is being taken away. Your official right to protest about the government, which is supposed to work for us, is being taken away. Gun license being, I mean, a whole lot of things are happening. Everything is getting more costly, and people are wondering all over the world, what the heck to do and what is behind it. And all this has become so difficult. I personally have listened to a lot of good people to see what to make sense of what's happening and also to figure out what should one do about it. I used to protest a lot against lockdowns and masks and so on. I even went to Ottawa once in July in 2020 to protest against these lockdowns and all this mask and all that, and shouted, on camera in front of the parliament. But then I'm stepping back a little to try to make sense of what's happening. We know it's a global problem. We don't know who is orchestrating all this. We know about the globalists. We know about the deep state. We know about the New World Order, but these are vague statements. Who or what is actually the government? If it is a government, which government? If it is some people, which people? How do they talk to each other and set up what they have to do next? And so, in the process, we have understood that most of the globalists are together on majority of the issues, but not necessarily all the issues. It's not a unified front, and the globalists do not have a kind of a working structure to control the planet. The idea is to control the planet by the globalists and the New World Order, one world government. You need to have a very strong setup, organizations. That seems to be missing. I mean, there are lots of organizations within the Western system. There is this United Nations, which in a way works for the West. There is World Bank and IMF, and there is all these smaller organizations, NATO and the EU and the this and that. All of them have some clout, but they do not seem to have any more a clout to control the entire planet. So here is the thing: how does United Nations people decide what to do? How, does World Health Organization like Bill Gates and this head of the WHO Todros, he decides everything, or or who or how? So it looks now that Scott Ritter might have touched upon an important issue, and he describes the deep state to be at the back of it all, including the fake war or the proxy war in Ukraine. It's not a war between Russia and Ukraine, it's a war between Russia and the West. It was intended to be a war within Russia and the rest of the planet, but it didn't work out as per plan. And the plan might have been deep states and combination of deep states with all its funders, all these big shots and globalists and all that. It didn't work out that way. Apparently, both parties made some serious mistakes. By both parties, I mean Russia on one side and the West on the other side. They made some serious mistakes. The West, for instance, grossly underestimated the difficulty in triggering a regime change in Russia and causing it to splinter into 3, 4 pieces. Russia was not Iraq, Russia was not Syria, Russia was not Afghanistan, and Russia was not Somalia or some place like that, or Grenada that you could invade. Russia is a difficult character to subdue. They grossly underestimated that. But then there is another gross underestimation they did. The rest of the world did not fall in line with the West. They underestimated that, and they underestimated the collective might of the non-West. 50 years ago, the non-West would account for nothing. They didn't have power, they didn't have money, they didn't have anything. Today, it's not so. The world is changing so rapidly that today groups like G7 is less important in many ways than groups like BRICS. Now, G7 is supposed to be the 7 most powerful economies in the world. At least that's what it was when it was created and we were made to believe. But today, G7 is not at all the most powerful 7 economies of the world. China is the second largest economy, neck to neck with USA, and it's not there. India is the 5th largest economy, going to be the 4th largest maybe this year or early next year, and the 3rd largest in another 1 or 2 years. And India is not there. Roughly speaking, G7 is basically Western nations, with one exemption or exception, and that is Japan. Japan is the only non-white country in the G7. BRICS, on the other hand, has almost no white country. So you can call it non-West because it has Russia, India, China, Brazil, and South Africa. You can say Brazil and South Africa has some white people. Russia has some white people, but they are not uniformly all white and European. No. So they are more globalist. If you compare the two groups today, here is the basic comparison, and it's good if you check it out yourself. Population wise, even including 400 million of Americans, uh, the G7 probably comprises of no more than 500-600 million people at the most, whereas the BRICS has nearly 3.2 billion people and more joining every day. Lot more people wanting to join BRICS. Okay, that's as far as the population. Landmass wise, BRICS has way more land than G7. Okay, resources wise, G7 has almost no resources and BRICS have almost all the resources. With Saudi Arabia and other countries, also Iran and all, also wanting to applying to join BRICS. Okay, then economic might. Yeah, 50 years ago it was one way. Today, if you check the total economic might, the BRICS have overtaken the G7, and not only that, the speed at which the BRICS is expanding while the G7 is stagnating or shrinking, the difference is only going to get larger and larger. Okay, next, the industrial base. Again, the West is in decline, continuous and slow decline, almost irretrievable decline, decline that cannot be turned back. And the BRICS is on a long-term growth plan that cannot be reversed. So, in all respects, the BRICS and the new BRICS Plus, or whatever you want to call it, that new guys are joining up all the time. Saudi Arabia wanting to join, I mentioned it, and Iran and many other countries, and Turkey, a nation which is in NATO right now, they have talked about applying for BRICS. So, yeah, they are looks like the future, and they are busy creating parallel systems that the West had originally championed. The banking system, the insurance system, the transfer of money, financial system, trading system, international reserve currency away from dollar and away from any particular country's currency, but a unified global currency of some sort. All these things are being worked out by the BRICS countries. There is no wish and no effort to do that by the West. The West likes the current system of US hegemony or hegemony, whatever you want to call it. So, a lot of things are changing. I personally see, if I may put it this way, I personally see this conflict that joins everything together, all the things that were being done to science, to medical science, to agriculture, many other sciences, as well as, Ukraine and stuff, everything to be connected to the New World Order goal on one side. And the goal was going fantastically well in the West till the Ukraine war. And Ukraine war has become a major roadblock on their plan. And this is causing lots of jitters, and their grand plan of owning the planet is getting in serious jeopardy. And now there's frantic issues going on how to handle the situation. The things that we used to admire of the West are all falling apart. All the Western rule of law, that means you do something, somebody cannot cheat you out of your money if you park it in the Western system. That is law. That is going away. You used to believe that you can't listen to Russian propaganda and Chinese propaganda and this and that. You can trust the Western news media; they are honest. That's going away completely. There is no mainstream media or social media control in the West that is giving any kind of that is giving mostly truth. They are telling mostly lies. So you cannot even trust what you see. TV is no place to find honest news. Everything, if you're Russian, your assets are being seized, and today they are doing it to Russians. which is illegal. You cannot seize anybody's assets without taking it to court and proving why his asset needs to be. If they can do that to Russians, they can do that to anybody, and that is another reason. It is proving that West is a dangerous one to do business with or park your money and finances with, and therefore there is a need for an alternative system away from the US dollars and and the American led system. This is happening now. So the world is literally turning on its head. This kind of change has not we have not seen for the last 400-500 years, since the beginning of the age of colonization. How to deal with all that is a $1 million question, but I decided that I will make this video as an introductory. I've never made live videos on Facebook before. I don't even know how it works. I did not advertise it. I did not ask anybody to join here. I'm just doing it to, check it out myself. And I thought I will make my comments. I have some observations, some comments that might be uh, more valid than than the next guy. Many people actually are famous talking about all this problem, but I'm not sure if everybody joins all the dots together. And there is no individual source of news, so one has to watch many channels and try to make sense out of it and then come up. Many people do that, but they are still very Eurocentric view, I think. And since the non-West is looming large and probably going to play a crucial role down the line in this, what you may call the West versus the non-West, or the so-called global North versus the global South. It is turning out to be some sort of a mega conflict of that kind, a new kind of world war. And common sense tells me that the future, at least the immediate future, belongs to the global South now and no more the North. But what shape it will take, who all will control it, how, whether the two halves of the world will at all deal with each other, or stop dealing with each other, all unanswered questions which is hard to analyze and make sense of. And there is no expert, anyone who can talk on all these subjects. One guy knows a little bit of this, one guy knows a little bit of that, and most of them are doing their guessing work. They're depending on which side of the fence they want to sit on or stand on, and then they are influenced by that rhetoric. So from the non-West, the BRICS, there is no spokesperson who can talk about the whole thing. I think non-West is not even organized to be together in their public announcements and all that. Those things have not yet fallen into place. There are internal frictions between partners in the non-West as well, and all that, but it's still falling into place. And this war, this artificial, fake, false flag proxy war in Russia is forcing many of these things to fall in place. So another day, I'll make another rant about what I think is going on, at least with regard to Russia, India, and to some extent China. I've been also trying to talk with Russian citizens living in Russia or living outside Russia, their views, and I'm having a little bit of a hard time. They don't seem to be too willing to speak of their views in English, those who can speak English. And they're shy, or one way or another, they're hesitant to talk about it, and that's causing some frustration from my part. But I'll continue to find good people. And anyhow, this is my first, what do you call, my first rant on a live stream TV on YouTube. I don't know whether it's showing. I don't know whether it's good, but here it is, and it's a good practice. I have not done it before. I'm not trying to earn any money. I'm not trying to make a channel that becomes 200, 300,000 people watching and then I'm earning some money. And no, I'm not interested, but I'm trying it out just to see if it works here. Maybe it'll work elsewhere too, and then we'll see whether there is any real need for me to go live, or I continue to do what I was doing, which is make pre-recorded videos and put them up. I do not go to YouTube much because YouTube started censoring free speech. But I don't know where else one can go live. One can go live on Facebook. I'm trying to create distance with Facebook for the same reason. They censor free speech. Where else one can go there, I don't know. So I will see. And whether it's necessary to go live stream, that itself I'm still trying to figure out. So that's all I have to say for now. Unbelievable time. We are into a surreal time, and I have to get up and move to shut off this recording because I'm sitting far away. So I might go off camera for 1 second. So leave your comment, and hopefully I can comment. I can try to see what comments come up. Try to get a dialogue. It's good to talk with people who are who are knowledgeable, who have some material to contribute. Main issue is what should we do about it instead of bitch about it. So so that's it, and ciao for now.